Hey there guys, welcome to Anthony Reviews, where Anthony reviews. Sonic has had a lot of crossovers this year. Just a few months back, I took a look at the collab with Transformers, which I thought was fine. But between that and the new Cross Worlds racing game, it's pretty clear that Sega is willing to let him team up with literally anyone, including superheroes. Earlier this year, we got the comic book crossover DC X Sonic the Hedgehog, a story where the characters of Sonic the Hedgehog met iconic DC heroes such as Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and more. The main bad of the series was of course Darkseid, because I guess he's just the go-to for the big bad in these things. Quick aside, but it was very funny to be reading stories like this featuring the New Gods characters while also reading Ram V's New Gods book at the same time. Let's just say that book requires a little bit of a higher reading level to enjoy, so bit of a different vibe. Anyways, DC and Sonic crossed over, and with that came the promise of much more than just a comic. It was immediately announced that merchandise would be available at some point this year. That included action figures from Jakks Pacific. Jakks has been making Sonic toys for a few years now, so it makes sense that they would be the ones to be in charge of this toy line. What we're looking at today are 5 figures from that lineup, 4 of the 5 figures coming from one large box set. So for today, we are looking at 4 Sonic characters, those being Sonic, Shadow, Amy, and Silver. We'll also look at the only non-Sonic character here, which of course is Darkseid. Let's look at the heroes first. All 4 characters are based on their appearance from the comic book crossover. I guess I should mention what the comic book was technically about. Each character is paired up with an iconic DC hero. Then at one point, the DC characters are trapped in the Sonic world, meanwhile, the Sonic characters are trapped in the DC world. Now the Sonic characters have to defend the DC universe in place of these heroes. Some of these choices are very obvious. Sonic is the Flash, Shadow is Batman, and Amy is Wonder Woman. The only one that feels like a little bit thought went into it was of course Silver as Green Lantern. I guess because he has a sort of glowing aura when he floats, and can shoot beams of lights. Green Lanterns can do that, right? If you ask me though, he had a lot more similarities to the character like Kyle Rayner, the last hope, undying optimism, the newest of the group. He definitely gave me Kyle vibes, which is funny because in the book he's teamed up with John Stewart. Like honestly, what do John and Silver have in common? What would they even talk about? Sorry if I get a little sidetracked in this review. I'm a very big fan of both Sonic the Hedgehog and DC Comics, so the potential of them crossing over and all the ideas that come with that was really exciting to me, and honestly, more than just 5 issues of a comic book could truly handle. But I know we're not talking about the comic book today, let's get back to the figures. All of these characters are based on how they appear in the comic book. These designs are fairly straightforward in concept. It's a Sonic character wearing the costume of a DC character. Each design is pulled from more or less the last 10 years or so. Let's start with Sonic. Sonic is dressed as the Flash here, and I mean, this is a shock to nobody, right? He was only going to be the Flash. Because of this though, we have a very red Sonic, which is pretty unusual. Despite this though, he does maintain all of his iconic features, such as the large quills coming off of his head, as well as the shape of his shoes. I guess this implies he's wearing a very tight spandex suit that conforms to every curve of his body, including the quills on his head. But I guess that's kind of what superhero costumes already are, so not too crazy of a concept. This figure does feature a surprising amount of unique sculpting. Some of it stands out a bit more, such as the lightning bolts on the ears or the logo and belt on his torso. Additionally though, all the yellow lines on his body are painted over sculpted lines. I wasn't expecting that. I figured they would just paint the lines on his body rather than fully sculpting them in. Considering that this line would feature many similarly sized and shaped characters, I figured they would just sort of make a normal base body without any sort of extra detailing on there. You know, making them practically identical. And sure, they do share similarities, but the added attention to detail just is nice. It's appreciated. Going back to the paint though, the lines themselves don't always line up with the sculpted lines perfectly. It's certainly not that noticeable, but it is there if you look close enough. And this is more so a personal thing, but I'm not a fan of the yellow lines over the Flash that sort of began with the New 52 era in 2011. It's just not my thing. Even though it's not my personal taste, it is accurate to what he looked like in the comics, so they do a pretty good job of realizing this design. I do think that the rest of the paint is pretty on point. He has a lot of red and yellow, of course, but little things like his green eyes really do stand out, and I do think that they look good. Let's take a look at another simple design with Silver as Green Lantern. This one is interesting for reasons that probably only people like me actually care about. Silver here is seen with what could be considered the standard GL uniform. You've probably seen it on characters such as Hal Jordan. This detail is sort of weird when you realize that he was paired with John, who pretty typically has a pretty iconic and unique outfit of his own. So instead of adapting his suit specifically, they give him more of the generic Green Lantern look. Now the benefit of the Green Lantern Corps is just that, it's a corps, it's a large group of people wearing uniforms. While many Lanterns, such as John or Kyle or Guy, do take it upon themselves to sort of stand out, a lot of Green Lanterns do stick to the usual look. So Silver, honestly, feels like a new recruit rather than a mashup like the other characters. I won't lie, as a Green Lantern fan, I kinda like it. One thing I don't like though is the mask. I just don't think it really looks like a mask, it just comes off as green eyeliner. I don't know, maybe something a bit bulkier really could have helped here. Similar to Sonic, the sculpting here is very specific to this figure. Small details that you won't really notice at first glance, like the arms and torso, but they are there. Subtle, but effective. The logo is nice and large on his chest, and very similar to what was going on with Sonic. Interestingly though, his boots are far more generic than the other characters. While Sonic's were very much Sonic shoes, but yellow to go with the Flash look, Silver's here are just sort of large green boots. I'm not sure the true intention of not giving Silver his usual looking boots, much like the other characters, but it does lend him to that look of being a Green Lantern new recruit, rather than him just sort of in Green Lantern paint. So I guess if you think of it that way, it's actually pretty neat. Speaking of paint, I do think that it's pretty fine. I didn't notice anything too sloppy or wrong on the figure, which can be the case with Jack-specific figures. The choice for green here looks good, and I honestly have no complaints. So far, I think he might be my favorite of the bunch, but I might be a little biased, I'll admit it. Have no fear, Amy Rose is here, and of course, she's Wonder Woman. The most prominent female Sonic character was going to be the most prominent female DC character, it just makes sense. Her design could easily be identified as Wonder Woman, but a few features do make it stand out as clearly inspired by the 2016 Rebirth design. I do think she looks good. Things like her skirt keeping the sort of Amy Rose general shape, but also having the star pattern, which is undeniably Wonder Woman. One glaring omission though would be her cape. Normally I wouldn't really expect Wonder Woman to have a cape, but this design did in fact have one. In the comic, Amy can be seen with this red cape on. Why this figure doesn't come with one, I'm not really sure why. That's a mystery to me. Another oddity I would say is her facial expression. I didn't really mention it with the other two, but they had fairly standard soft smiles. Nothing too crazy or emotive, just kind of vanilla faces. Well, not vanilla, never mind. Amy, though, is frowning. I guess this is meant to give her a look of, like, determination, maybe she's serious, but I don't know. It just really doesn't fit Amy for me. But other than some odd-looking choices with the face there, the red, the blue, the gold, all the colors and everything do look really nice. Because she does have a lot of different features compared to the two that we just looked at, like her boots and the sort of gauntlets on her arms, she does have a lot of unique details that do look really good. I also like the tiara on her head. I think that's appropriately shaped, looks nice, it looks like, well, a tiara. I think maybe if they gave her more of a determined look or maybe even a smile, I don't think I'd have anything to complain about. The last of the heroes here was exclusive to the box set and will probably be the main reason a lot of people get it. This, of course, will be Shadow. The dark and brooding hedgehog as the Dark Knight feels pretty much like the whole reason this was done in the first place. Like, yes, Sonic runs fast like the Flash, but Shadow the Hedgehog as Batman? Come on, I feel like they could have just done that by itself and people would be all over it. As is the case with other figures, Shadow is wearing a suit inspired by the 2016 Rebirth outfit. This means we get the purple interior on the cape as well as the yellow outline around the bat symbol on his chest. The symbol here is also where we get Jack Specific's biggest selling points, and maybe its biggest problem if you ask me. Recently, Jax has been playing around with the idea of light-up action figures. We saw this a lot with the Sonic Movie 3 toys, and we can now see it here with a light-up bat logo. Now, in theory, this makes sense. The Batman logo has lit up before, and it does make the figure stand out. However, the way it stands out isn't exactly ideal here. For starters, the paint isn't super clean on mine, so when you light it up, it just sort of shows the faint areas where the paint isn't fully applied. Not really a good look. The biggest problem I have, though, is the size of the torso. Because you have to fit an entire lighting system inside here, he has a much bigger chest than the others. I guess you could argue it makes him look a bit tougher, but I don't know. He looks kind of inflated, like a balloon. And because of the shape of his torso, he can't put his arms all the way down at his side, something that Sonic and Silver have done just fine with no problem. It just seems that this was all more trouble than it was actually worth, if you ask me. Everything else, though, I think is good. I dig the idea of the red streaks of his quills now being a gray to match his suit. Does he paint them like that? I guess that's not important. You also get a ton of sculpted detail on things like the bottom of his shoes, which do look really nice and are painted well. Obviously, they knew they had to make Shadow look good, so despite sort of the QC issues I have here and there and the sort of oddness of his chest, he does stand out in a good way for the most part. The one non-Sonic character in this set is of course the big bad of the crossover, that being Darkseid. Often depicted as one of the biggest threats in the DC universe, it's amusing to say the least to see him go up against cartoon characters like this. For the figure though, he's actually not that bad. I think Jax did a pretty good job with something out of the norm compared to, well, Sonic. His design is pretty much pulled from the modern interpretations, specifically seen in the storyline Justice League Darkseid War. He's definitely not the classic Jack Kirby version, but he does have the notable features like his rough, stone-like skin as well as his blue outfit. I do think some of the details might come off a bit soft here and there, but really, the unique sculpting and everything does make it clear who it's supposed to be. I like his grimacing face with his sort of gritted teeth. It brings back memories of the DC Collectibles Darkseid from back in the day. His head might be a little small, but I guess that does make his chest and torso look bigger. Which, yeah, they do come off as large compared to the rest of them, but he's Darkseid, he's a big bulky guy, that's not too crazy. And while accurate, his separately sculpted abs are a bit silly looking, let's be honest. I think the paint is mostly fine. Like I mentioned, his sort of gray skin, blue outfit looks good, and he does have this nice sort of trim of gold that runs around his body that does give it a bit of a splash of color. I do have one issue with mine, that being the red paint on his sort of, juggernaut jewel, I want to call it, right on his chest. There is sort of a scratch on there exposing the gold plastic beneath it, or maybe it's gold paint scratched over top. Either way, it's dead center on his chest, a bit of a bummer. At a distance, it's really not noticeable, but it's there. I know it's there. I can't unknow that it's there, so it's annoying. The biggest difference of these figures compared to the normal Jax offerings is of course the size and articulation. Similar to their movie figures, these are larger than the normal 4-inch Sonic figures and offer much more articulation. I would say that this is the greatest strength and potentially the most damning weakness. There is tons, and I mean tons of movement in these figures. The limbs and the torso, as well as even the hands and feet. You get a nice amount of range in the neck even, which you don't normally get in Jax figures. As superhero toys, I think that they can get into pretty heroic and action-packed poses. The amount of fun I've had with Silver as Green Lantern specifically, as a Green Lantern fan myself, it's been a lot, just to say the least. I do have one gripe though. The finger articulation just makes no sense to me. There's a hinge which allows the figures to move up and down, but the hand is curved into a fist shape. So when they open, they don't come off as a natural hand at all. We saw the same thing happen with the Sonic Movie 3 toys last year, and when I reviewed those toys, I expressed my disinterest in them. I don't think that they work. It's honestly a shame to see them return with these figures. I'll just say this joint adds nothing. And if it doesn't add anything, don't add it. Not to mention, with as many articulation points as these figures have, it tends to make them a bit loose. The biggest major downside to any figure with too much articulation is of course the looseness. They just have so many places that they can swivel and bend, and Jax Pacific tends to use fairly soft plastic, so it can be a bit cumbersome to handle them or get them to stand, especially with their very large and very solid thick heads. These are not hollow figures, I might add. They are very, very thick. So when you have a character like Shadow, his knees might buckle, and it's going to be a bit of a problem. Darkseid's articulation is similar in theory, but obviously he has a very different body type than the others. I honestly think he's a lot of fun to mess around with. I mentioned earlier that Jakks Pacific tends to use a softer type of plastic compared to companies like, let's say, McFarlane or NECA. So messing around with this guy, getting him into silly poses, or even chucking him around, I don't feel like I'm going to break him, which I really can't say that about a lot of Darkseid figures nowadays. Now would also be a good time to mention the scale, not just of the figures in general, but between each other. Despite 3 of the characters coming in a pack with Darkseid, they are not to scale with them. There are actually figures of Superman, Batman, and Cyborg that come with 2.5-inch figures instead of the 5-inch ones we see here. I won't lie, it's a bit frustrating. As of now, we have Sonic, Shadow, Amy, and Silver in the 5-inch scale. Then we have Knuckles, Tails in the 2.5-inch scale, and you have other characters that will also be in the 2.5-inch scale, but they don't come with the other heroes. You have to get them in blind bags. It just makes it really weird that you have to buy 2.5-inch figures if you want any of the Justice League members, but if you want Darkseid and, of course, this Shadow figure with the light-up feature, you have to buy this multi-pack. Do you see why I'm a little frustrated? At this point, I'm committed to the larger scale, I guess, so I hope that we get Knuckles and Tails eventually. As I stated at the beginning of this video, earlier this year I reviewed the Transformers X Sonic collab figures from Hasbro. Ultimately, I thought those figures were pretty okay. These though, I think they are generally good. Sure, they have some problems, they have some faults, but overall, I would say if you like DC, if you like Sonic, if you like the crossover, I think that these are good toys to pick up. This video is brought to you in part by HobbyLink Japan. If you're a fan of things like Super Sentai, anime, or just Japanese media in general, why not check out HobbyLink Japan? They've got figures, statues, and a whole horde of different kinds of collectibles. Use the code on screen to get 10% off all in-stock items. Check out HobbyLink Japan today using the link down in the description below. Thank you guys for watching my review of the new DC X Sonic the Hedgehog figures from Jakks Pacific. As I can see, I thought I was pretty positive on these figures, despite a few hiccups here and there. I do really like them. Feel free to let me know what you guys think of the crossover in general. Did you read the comic book? Do you want to see more stuff from this crossover? Other figures? Other things? I don't know. You want Batman to show up in the racing game? Let me know. Feel free to check out my channel. I do have other Sonic-related content if you want to watch other Sonic videos. If you want DC videos, I've got plenty of those, so feel free to watch those. Subscribe for more videos in the future if you feel inclined to do so. And I guess that is pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.